Let's go to the SEC. Georgia 43, Florida 20, man.
Okay, so here's some breaking news. Carson Beck's really good.
Yeah, well, and I think that was my takeaway from this game, to be honest with you, because we have seen two instances in particular where Kirby Smart gave Carson Beck the ball and handed him a little bit more responsibility to win the game, right? Because Georgia does not need to do that. Georgia can run the football effectively. They can beat you a multitude of different ways. They can beat you with just defense if they really want to. But there are two instances that come to mind. One was the Kentucky game, and the other was this game today, the cocktail party against Florida, where they essentially gave the ball to Carson Beck and said, go do what you do. And in both cases, I think we underestimated how good he was. The first time around, because we hadn't really seen a game like that out of him, the Kentucky game. And this time around, because Brock Bowers was out of the lineup, because he's hurt. And in both instances, he far exceeded expectations. 315 yards passing, 19 of 28, 2 touchdowns. We have not seen him flustered this season. He does not get flustered. Maybe he will in the remainder of Georgia's regular season schedule. They've still got Mizzou. They've got Ole Miss. They've got a game on the road at Tennessee. Maybe we will see it then.
Mm-hmm.
We did not see it today. And this was arguably, the biggest game on the schedule. It's certainly the biggest rivalry on the schedule. Even after Florida scored first, Florida's opening drive, very good.
Yeah.
Georgia scores 36 straight points before Florida scores again, not until the fourth quarter. I think the concerns about Brock Bowers being out of the lineup, I think the concerns about Georgia having to win with their quarterback and not with some of the usual suspects, all of those concerns were greatly exaggerated going into this game. And now, knowing what we know, it kind of makes us all feel silly.
Find Lad McConkey. That's a really nice first step. And the thing that impressed me specifically about Carson Beck is Florida sent a lot of pressure at him. And there were times where he certainly heard footsteps, and you couldn't tell. That he would step in, especially down the middle of the field. He seemed fearless. They didn't have him throw a ton. Mike Bobo didn't have him throw a ton. Dejon Edwards ran really well. The defense started mixing up pressures. They started tackling really well in the open field. Some questionable, fourth down type calls for Florida in big moments. And I thought Graham Mertz was mostly fine. I just don't think he's a good enough quarterback to beat Georgia. And here's more breaking news. Very few are. So I have been personally proven wrong by what I think has been his growth this year. I just don't think Florida is on the level to beat Georgia. I don't think they have the weapons. I don't think they have the lines. And maybe they'll get there. The recruiting seems to be going in absolutely the correct direction. And they have a quarterback of the future. But no, this was a Georgia team that played, it seemed to play with more of your Tom Hanks castaway fire under their helmets. And it showed. They were not ready to cede an inch to Florida in this rivalry. And Lad McConkey, changing directions on a dime. Was it Oscar Delp had a nice catch? They were making plays, and there are just too many ways still for Georgia to win, even if there isn't clear and obvious and experienced star power on both sides of the ball. They just have guys everywhere, and that's good enough for basically everybody in the SEC.
Yeah, while I was playing with the tech during the Oregon-Utah stream, the same thing happened in the Georgia-Florida game as the Oregon-Utah game, in that when I finally looked up,
right,
the game was out of hand.
Yeah.
It was out of hand. How did it get here so quickly? Georgia just made quick work. I don't know what else to say. They were really impressive.
There was just a calm to Carson Beck that I don't think you can get until you have 5, 6, 7, 8 games starting under your belts, and you're starting to see. I didn't think he was yippy or jumpy at all, but it just takes time to get used to playing at this level. And I think especially, what was it? I think Dominic Lovett, the Mizzou transfer receiver, was making plays. He's just going to get into a rhythm more and more, and that's scary for everybody.
He's been in the system for a couple years. He didn't transfer, so he's very familiar with what they're trying to do. Certainly the support staff around him. And I was just really impressed by, he didn't get flustered. You look at his presence in the pocket. He looks like a pro quarterback in the pocket. I mean, he's got a really good feel for where his protection is. He's got a good feel for where the pressure's coming from, and it seems to know where to go with the football very quickly. I suppose it's easier when you're playing on Georgia, but nonetheless, that level of poise, despite some of our concerns about whether or not Georgia with a new starting quarterback could get the job done in the same way as the old starting quarterback who was there for an eternity, I think we kind of have our answer. It could get tougher over the next couple weeks. I suspect it will, but I'm not sure if it's really going to show on the Georgia side because they just seem like they're almost impervious to it at this point.